Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. It's Thursday here on the program. We're inching closer to game day between BYU and Utah, which kicks off on Saturday night, 6 p.m. on Fox and right here on KSL News Radio. Extended pregame coverage of BYU and Utah on the radio here on News Radio begins at noon from Swig on Canyon Road. So we'll be right by the stadium. Myself and Kyle Ireland, we will have you covered for the Cougs and the Utes. And there's so many good storylines in this matchup, and that's our top story of the day.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
Before we dive into the storylines, though, I do want to say happy birthday to BYU. 150th birthday today for Brigham Young University. It became Brigham Young Academy 150 years ago on this day. So 1875 on October 16th. I was trying to go to the time capsule from 50 years ago down in Provo. I tried to make it. I reached out to some of BYU's PR people, and they were kind enough to give me the info, but unfortunately, I was unable to get down there. So cool, though. 150 years at BYU. So happy birthday to Brigham Young University. Time flies, man. It flies by. Another 50 years, it'll be 200 and so forth. But the key storylines for BYU versus Utah, I think it starts things off with the availability report. Who's in, who's out. We saw the initial report yesterday, and there's some good news for the Cougars as Jack Kelly, he is not listed on this report, and defensive coordinator Jay Hill said they expect Jack to play. On the downside, Raider Mooney is doubtful for the game. Remember, Raider suffered a hit to his rib cage from the helmet of Isaiah Glasker against Arizona. That took him out. He got in street clothes and was out for the remainder of the game. He's doubtful this week. On a positive side, Anisi Purcell for BYU, defensive tackle, he's probable. So that's positive because BYU, I thought that was an underrated absence, not having Purcell at that defensive tackle position for BYU, because you've got Talmoy Payao, you got Keanu Tanavasa. That third guy, the best one, third best player, is Purcell. Kirkland's that fourth guy, but I think it's been up and down a little bit so far for Kirkland. So Purcell being probable is noteworthy. And then also in the out category, safety Tommy Parasis, and that kind of leads you to believe that we could be seeing Jonathan Cabella and Tavion Beasley. Remember, Jonathan Cabella, last week, he was probable, dressed, went through pregame warmups at Arizona, but ultimately didn't play. Maybe we see the season debut for Jonathan Cabella against the Utes so he could play that nickel spot. Because, again, I think Cabella is BYU's best nickel. Some players for Utah. Not much has changed from past weeks. Rabbit Evans, Nate Ritchie, they're out. Hunter Andrews, one of their top tight ends, he's out. Paul Fitzgerald, and so forth. So that's the initial availability report for BYU and Utah. But it's huge for BYU to expect that Jack Kelly will give it a go and play, because Kelly just does so much for this defense. He opens everything up to allow for guys like Isaiah Glasker, who you're going to hear from on this show today, to open things up for him to become a playmaker on this defense. Isaiah Glasker had an excellent career-high game last week, 16 tackles against Arizona. Glasker, the confidence he's playing with, Glasker, Kelly, man, that's a nice recipe for success to try to slow down a Utah offense led by Devin Dampier at quarterback. And Devin Dampier has Utah's one of the best offenses in the Big 12. Utah, number 2 in scoring offense in the Big 12 this season, 39.5 points per game. BYU not far behind at number 3, 37.5. But within that, though, I feel like BYU invites more of a rock fight style game. I think, unlike years past, I think BYU typically was always, hey, get this thing above 24 points and up, because a rock fight against Utah is not a recipe for success. I think the good thing about this BYU team, and it's been really the case since last year, the start of last season, they have found ways to win no matter the circumstances. And if it is a game that's, say, a rock fight in the teens, BYU's okay with that. Whereas I think Utah wants the scoring to get up a little bit higher. I always look at this game and say, averages that you have offensively going into this game, throw them out the window, because this game, more times than not, is always a low-scoring slog that's not the most pretty executed game. It's not very often that BYU and Utah games are track meets and it's back and forth high-scoring games. These are two physical football teams. The coaching staffs know everything about each other. So I always lean to the defensive side in these sort of matchups, and I think for BYU, they invite that. Now, with that said, Utah's a good defense too. Utah's number 2 in defense in the Big 12, 13.8 points per game allowed. BYU number 3, 14.7. They also have the top 2 rushing offenses in the Big 12. Again, the statistical profile of these games or these teams is so similar, and it's going to be a game that comes down to the wire. I'm really curious to see, when you look at kind of the matchups and the storylines in this game, how Keanu Tanavasa and John Talmoy-Peau perform against Utah's offensive line. Guys like Jaron Kump, Moka Fisi, that interior of the offensive line for Utah. The tackles are the stars, Lomu and Fano, but the interior, can BYU have success in the interior of that Utah offensive line, which, as Jay Hill said, I've heard it's the best offensive line in the country, of what I've been told. And Kyle Whittingham has been very candid about that. He's said consistently since last summer and to this week even, best offensive line he's coached at Utah, and they dominated Arizona State. So if BYU's interior with Talmoy-Peau, Keanu Tanavasa, who's going to be a huge story in this game, how do they perform against the Utah interior offensive line? Because if they can have success and get a little bit of a push, man, that is huge, because Utah's offensive line is really good. I do believe it. I think that Utah's O-line is one of the best in the Big 12. I'm also really curious to see how BYU's receivers perform. Can they avoid the drops? In games like this, any mistake, whether it's a drop, whether it's putting the ball on the turf, anything gets magnified. And the viewpoints that fans have of these players can be completely altered in this game. You know, think about last year, Will Farron boots the game winner, 44 yards, the same number on his jersey. He becomes a BYU legend because of this game. If he boots that 44-yard game winner against Oklahoma State last year, he's well respected by BYU fans. But a legend? No. Will Farron gets some of the biggest cheers at the stadium because of what he did against Utah. So what I'm saying is the drops that have happened sparingly at times this season from BYU, Chase Roberts, Carson Ryan last week, can't have it happen this week. And the receivers got to be automatic. Parker Kingston's playing his best football of his BYU career. Everyone's got to play their best game against Utah's secondary, which is really good. Utah's got a good pass defense, 12th, second pass defense, in the Big 12. BYU's 4th in pass defense. Again, the profiles of these teams, it is the same teams lining it up. And the matchups are so tightly contested. But what I do like, too, is that BYU comes into this game as an underdog. And I always like an underdog BYU team in these spots. Even though you're undefeated, I think BYU can go into this game and feel pretty loose, play free, and not tense, whereas all the pressure, to me, resides on the side of Utah because they've got to get this one. They can't stomach the idea of possibly Kyle Whittingham going out with 3 straight losses to Utah. Not saying this is his last year, but if it is, he's in the twilight of his career, at least we would think. He put an unofficial clock on his timeline last year at Big 12 Media Day when it was talking about the Utah-Miami game in 2027. So there's kind of an unofficial clock. And the pressure is on Utah. If they lose, they're probably out of the Big 12 championship race and probably the playoff mix. Huge game. Storylines are endless in this one. Let's take a break. Let's get to some rivalry memories, and then also a little bit later, Isaiah Glasker interview coming up right here on Cougar Tracks. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, get the notification bell so you can be notified when we go live with any of these videos, and so you can see all of Cougar Tracks on YouTube and also listen to the show on all audio podcasting platforms. Memorable Utah and BYU moments. This rivalry is awesome. It's awesome. The games are so cool, and I think even beyond the games too, it's the sideshow antics with the fans on social media that just add to the richness of the rivalry. It's so incredible how intense this thing gets. The fans do not like each other one bit. They just don't. I know that the school presidents, President Taylor Randall, President C. Shane Reese at BYU, they're giving it a valiant effort again. Second year in a row. Rival right. I don't know if it's going to work. Not with these two fan bases. I hope it does, because the messaging that Kalani gives out there about just being friendly, showing respect, it is a more rewarding experience where you're not going crazy. You can enjoy the game, win or lose. You still got 5 games after this season, after this week. You don't have, the season is not all lost if you did lose this game. Now, I will argue there is no great season in BYU football history that involves a loss to Utah. There's not. I talked about this last year. If you want to have a great season at BYU, you have to beat Utah. Does anyone look at the 1994 season as a great season in BYU football history? No, they don't. 2008, great team, 10 wins, nationally ranked. Great season? No. They lost to Utah. Utah had the quest for perfection. BYU did not. You have to beat Utah to have a great season. It's as simple as that. That's just what it is. And if they're on the schedule, you have to beat them in order to be great. So if you want to have one of the great teams in BYU history, you got to beat them. Last year's team, they beat Utah. No surprise. I think BYU's team last year, one of the 4 or 5 best teams in program history. The team was really good. This team could be better. And if they want to be one of the greats, they've got to take down the Utes. Some of my memorable moments and rivalry memories, if you will, with this rivalry. I look at last year, for starters, being on the field for those final moments. It was crazy when the holding was called. I'm at the opposite end of the field. I'm at field level. Look, this is a tangent. I don't know how coaches do it. I just do not know how they do it and watch a football game at field level. Now, it's cool to hear the emotion and feel it. It's tangible on the field. But to actually observe and see how things develop and progress, more power to them. Look, we get so bent out of shape on coaches with clock management. When you're on field level, it is all just a blur at times. And you're just like, what is actually happening on the field? To actually dissect what transpires when you're at field level, it's insane. Because, and I say this, being in the south end zone at Rice Eccles last year, and all that's going down in the north end zone with Retzloff, and then the holding gets called, I could barely see that. Yes, you could see some things develop, but again, the sack in the end zone, it's hard to see. It's just hard to watch football at field level to me. I'd rather have eye in the sky, press box view to see it all develop. So whenever coordinators are like, I want to be at field level, I'm like, why? Get up in that box and see it all develop. The emotion's incredible on the field. And that's what stands out to me from last year, being down there on the field and just seeing that raw emotion. Because remember last year, there was still that feeling of, yes, BYU won in 2021. They're undefeated. Utah's got nothing to lose, but they can't win in Salt Lake. They always struggle in Salt Lake. They get that off the back and take down the Utes in Salt Lake. That was a huge win. And then Will Farron again became a legend. 2021, that game just had so much momentum for BYU. There was just something in the air that night that you just knew BYU's going to get it done. Hard to describe, but maybe it was the Big 12 invite, how loose Kalani Sitake was when he was in the BYU broadcasting building, seeing that Big 12 invite, it was just, there just felt like a sense of confidence. Like you knew Jaron Hall was going to get it done somehow, some way. And they did. That was a field storming. And it was weird because that was on the heels of COVID. And I think that added to it a little bit because for the previous year, fans didn't get to be a part of the team. And there had already been a game the week prior, but it was just this range of emotions just overcoming the fan base to be part of BYU football again, to storm the field after taking down Utah, ending the streak, one of the memorable nights in BYU football history. Even some of the losses, there were memorable moments. You think about, 2010, Brandon Bradley's knee, it was down. It was down. His knee was down. That's a memorable moment, though. The all-white uniforms, I will say, this might be a polarizing take. I don't know if I like the all blue versus the all red in the rivalry. Can you not see BYU in the blue, but wear the white pants and wear the white helmet? I don't know if I'm all in on all blue, all red. That's just me. Look, Utah's going to have the black sleeves this year, so there's a little bit of a different color, and I bring this up because 2010, they had an all-white look, and I thought it looked pretty good. And I was okay with that. Now, granted, they lost in those, so maybe it's a cursed uniform thread for this game, but ever since that game, since 2011 on, it's been blue versus red, and now recently it's all blue, all red. I kind of just want to see the traditional royal blue top, white helmet, white pants. Utah go with a traditional look. I do like their helmet this year, getting rid of the stripe. I kind of like, that's just Utah's helmet to me. Historically, no stripe in the middle. Other memories that really stand out to me in this rivalry. 2009, Andrew George is still running. That was memorable, the field storming there. But I think with that one, though, I always look at that game and say, it felt like it was a win for BYU, but Utah was incredibly young. And they gave BYU everything they could handle. And it goes to overtime with a senior-laden BYU team. And you just think to yourself, that was supposed to be a game where you hammered Utah, not needed a last-second miracle. And I thought, to me, like, yeah, it's a win, but you didn't really do what you were supposed to do against Utah, if that makes sense. Then, of course, Max had his rant, and that's in BYU lore. I remember that was the early days of Twitter, and I remember there was a reporter who covered Utah, and she tweeted out something to the effect of one of the craziest post-game press conferences I've ever witnessed. And at that time, I wasn't in the media, and I just remember thinking, what happened? And then we hear it on KSL NewsRadio, the post-game, and I thought, whoa, he went there. Because the thing is about that is I think most Cougar fans felt that way. Now all the other stuff of like there's just a deep-seated kind of hate. They don't want to hate the people, but just BYU and Utah, they don't get along. They just don't. So a lot of Cougar fans are like, yeah, that's how I feel. And Utah fans then made Max Hall public enemy number one. And then people believe that there was a Max Hall curse because of that quote. And ever since Tyler Huntley, when you talk about curses, maybe he put a curse. Ever since Tyler Huntley said, we ain't never going to lose to them. They so poo-poo. Utah hasn't won since. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe there needs to be some post-game quote that puts another hex on a team. We'll see what happens on Saturday. But people look at this rivalry and say, oh, Urban Meyer changed it. No. No. This rivalry has always been electric. It's always been intense. Go back to Wayne Howard, 1977. BYU puts Mark Wilson back in to get an NCAA record. This thing has always been off the charts insane. People say, oh, Urban was the one that made it nasty. Okay, maybe Urban was the guy that didn't have the jovial friendship with the coaches. Crowan really didn't have that with McBride. After Lavelle left, the Big Five huddle ended when Crowan arrived. That was kind of controversial at the time. There was no bank commercials between Crowan and McBride. So you could maybe say the friendliness between the coaches ended. It's kind of circled back with Kalani and Whittingham. And I think, with Morgan Scalley and Kalani, they're clearly great friends. And I say Scalley because he's the coach in waiting for Utah. But, even stuff like that, though, McBride and Lavelle, yes, they got along, but the fans didn't like each other then. Yes, they're doing bank commercials, 34, 31. Didn't matter. The fans didn't like each other. But there's always stuff. And the recruiting battles, everything. This rivalry is always intense, 365. And then it's just this game that kind of brings it all together. It's awesome. 2006, Harlene's still open. How can you forget that? I mean, you see Santa Claus in the background. Just devastated in that north end zone at Rice Eccles. That was a big win. I mean, final play of the game. John Beck, put it in your record books. The Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year. 4 in a row won't happen. Here in Salt Lake. That's almost 20 years ago. What are we doing? How fast is time going, folks? It's insane. Anyway, I could go on and on about these memories, but we got to get to Week 8, Big 12 picks.
Big 12 picks. In the deepest conference in America, anything can happen. Mitch tries to tell you what will happen next. It's his Big 12 picks. Big 12 picks.
We'll roll through these quick. Arizona at Houston, 10 a.m. on FS1. I'm going with the Wildcats in another cat fight for Arizona. Going to go with the Wildcats to get it done on the road over Houston. I liked what I saw from this Arizona team. I think it carries over. Despite their loss to BYU, I think they built some momentum there. So I'm going to go with Arizona to get that win, and I don't think that would be an upset. Baylor at TCU, 10 a.m. on ESPN2. This is going to be classic Big 12 video game numbers. The two best passing quarterbacks in college football, Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover. I'm going to go with TCU close in the rivalry, or now the Blue Bonnet game. West Virginia at UCF. The throwback game where we're going, we don't need roads. Scott Frost and Rich Rod, they're back at their old stomping grounds. West Virginia, feels crazy to say this, but first game back for the Mountaineers since the BYU game, which feels like a lifetime ago in many respects. West Virginia at UCF, Knights roll big, 10 a.m. on TNT. Number 7, Texas Tech at Arizona State. Baron Morton is questionable in this one. So that's going to be something to monitor. But Will Hammond's been really good for Texas Tech at QB. Sam Levitt for the Sun Devils, he's probable. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders to get it done. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. I think this Red Raiders team makes another statement and lays claim to being one of the 4 best teams in college football. And then number 24, Cincinnati at Oklahoma State, 6 p.m. on ESPN2. Anyone that's playing Oklahoma State, just pick the opponent. But I will say, those Oklahoma State fans who went shirtless and just started to build it up, one guy started it, and then hundreds began going shirtless and spinning their shirts around. That was awesome. Dudes rock. That was great. I love that. That was so cool. Before we get to a break, Big 12 basketball preseason coaches poll is out. Big 12 basketball media day is next week, and I'll be in Kansas City covering all the action at Big 12 media day. BYU checks in at number 2 in the preseason poll. Houston's number 1, BYU 2, Texas Tech 3, Arizona 4, Iowa State at 5, Kansas at 6, Baylor is 7, Cincinnati at 8, Kansas State at 9, it's a little bit high to me, 10 TCU, 11 West Virginia, 12 Oklahoma State, 13 Utah, 14 UCF, 15 Colorado, and 16 Arizona State. Oklahoma State's the team that, to me, is the sleeper. I had them at 9, and they pulled off an upset over Auburn in exhibition play this week, so keep an eye out for the Pokes. But how about that? BYU in year 3 of one of the toughest conferences in America in basketball. BYU preseason number 2 team, and they got 1 first-place vote. I'm curious who that coach was. 14 first-place votes go to Houston. So there was 2 coaches remaining. Kelvin Sampson dished out his vote to someone, either Arizona or BYU, and then someone else voted BYU. We'll see. I'll have to find out down in Kansas City. But that's the Big 12 basketball preseason coaches poll. Final break, Isaiah Glasker next here on Cougar Tracks. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. BYU star linebacker Isaiah Glasker, one of the best playmakers at the linebacker position in the Big 12. He's been a little bit banged up the past few weeks. How's Isaiah feeling? I caught up with Isaiah at practice this week as he gets ready for the Utes. And how is he feeling on his health? This is my conversation with Isaiah Glasker. BYU football gears up for the Utah Utes this week, and joining me now is BYU linebacker Isaiah Glasker. And Isaiah, how would you describe the intensity, the emotions, the preparation this week to get ready for a rivalry game?
I would say really just the same as any other week. You know what I'm saying? We're getting ready to play a game that's we know it's going to be a tough game. It's a tough opponent, and I know I'm just excited for the challenge. I know all the boys are excited for the challenge, so really just the same preparation as every other week.
Last year was your first experience to play in the game. How would you describe what this game is like?
Really just the atmosphere. It's like, you know, the fans are more into it than we are, I guess. That's what it seems like. But it's fun having, especially down south. I grew up in Salt Lake, so there's a whole lot of Utah fans. I know the diversity and everything. It's, I don't know, just the atmosphere. I feel like people are always battling who's better, this, that. But we're just excited to go out there and for this challenge, really. When you bring up the fan side of it, is that intensity as far as the, I don't want to say hatred, but just like the intensity on both sides of it, does that carry over to the players? Because I'm sure you guys, you played against a lot of the guys on Utah's offense and no guys on that team. Really, it's just, like I said, I don't know, just like playing any other team. You know what I'm saying? I have a lot of friends that play college football, and it's always good seeing them. But like when we get on the field, it's just about business always. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to getting out there just because I know it's going to be a big challenge for us. And they have a great offense, and I don't know, just excited for the challenge, really. So, how quick did the defense turn the page from Arizona to this Utah game, and just your overall assessment of what took place last week? Really, we can just use Arizona as an example just to help us get better and like what we need to improve on. So, I don't know, this week it's been about us and what we can do better for this upcoming game, and that's really just the focus. So, how are you feeling health-wise? Last week we saw you on the availability report. 2 weeks ago, too, going to West Virginia. You were held out 2 weeks ago in that second half. What were you dealing with, and how are you feeling health-wise? Really just a little banged up. You know, when it gets to October, it's like the body it always aches. So, I don't know, really just kind of get my body right this week, and I'm starting to feel a lot better. So, feel like what's some areas of this defense that are areas of focus for this week against Utah? Really, we just know that they can really do everything. They can pass, run. So it's just focusing on what we can do, just to, I don't know, just stop the run, be on our cues just when it comes to the pass game and everything. So, I don't know, that's why I say it's really just about us and what we can do. So, Utah's got a quarterback in Dampier, though. Was there the preparation that you guys faced last week with Fafita? Any crossover you think stylistically between Fafita and now Dampier? Really, I just think, especially in the Big 12, you get all these great quarterbacks like this guy right here. No, Bachmeier? Yeah, for sure. But I don't know, really just playing every week, you always face these good quarterbacks, and it's just, I feel like you can get better more often. So, the challenges this week with the rivalry, I'm curious, you had parents that were BYU athletes. Did you grow up watching this series when you were growing up as a kid? See, honestly, my first BYU-Utah game that I actually cheered for BYU was back in 2021, I think. I was on a visit to BYU, and that was the first time I switched over, and then BYU ended up winning. But throughout my whole life, I always grew up Utah fan. My sister went to Utah, so I don't know. I just always was a Utah fan, and I don't know. Now that I'm at BYU, they're both great programs, and I'm thankful that I could grow up just to see a little bit of both. So. Did you grow up wanting to play at Utah, though, when you were going through the recruiting process at Bingham High School? I did, though, honestly. Just because I grew up, that was my team, really, was Utah. But I don't know, as soon as I met Kalani and everything, and this has really been the great place for me. And I'm thankful for all the coaches and everything that I have who have got me to where I'm at right now, and I'm just super thankful for that. So, did Utah recruit you out of high school? Kind of, not really. I I went to their camp. I know how they have their All About You camp or whatever. I don't really
You'd
know.
shoot?
Yeah, we was at the Ute shoot and everything, but yeah, not really, I would say. So
I feel like it's all worked out here now being at BYU.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just grateful to where I'm at right now, and thankful for the teammates I've met and the coaches I've met, and just like the mentors I've had at BYU, just to put me in a place where I'm at right now. So
Last couple moments here with Isaiah Glasker. I want to get your thoughts on some of the other linebackers that stepped up the past couple weeks. Ace Kafusi, came up big, and Sialia Sarah had a career high 16 tackles. Just thoughts on some of those guys and the overall depth that this linebacker unit has.
yeah, really just I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. It's like you could put any linebacker in and on our depth chart, and they're going to perform. We have some guys at linebacker, and I'm excited when they get opportunities to play and they can really show what they can do. Because we practice every day, and it's like we all see it. So I'm thankful for Ace and all these guys I've came here to BYU with, and I know there's some dogs. So I love our LBs.
How much do you enjoy this defensive scheme under Jay Hill?
A whole lot, just because he puts me in me and the other boys on our defensive positions to where we can make plays, and so far we've been super successful. Even last year, you kind of seen what our defense did, and I don't know, if we just follow in Jay Hill, he can take us to where we want to go, really. So
Last thing for you, is it hard at all to tune out the distraction of NFL possibilities? People say your name linked to being a future NFL guy. Does that get challenging? You see NFL scouts here all the time. Does that kind of creep in your head, or do you keep that tuned out and focus on the task at hand?
Really just focusing at the task at hand. If I do what I need to do here right now, and then I just know everything's going to be put in its place, and I'll be able to get to the NFL. So I don't know, really just focus on what I have right now. So.
Well, big games like this one coming up this week, give those spotlight opportunities. Best of luck this week, Isaiah, and looking forward to seeing you in action this week.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
That's Isaiah Glasker, BYU star linebacker for the Cougars right here on Cougar Tracks. And that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of Cougar Tracks. We will be back tomorrow for a Football Friday, as I'll give my score prediction and in-depth game preview for the Cougs and the Utes. BYU and Utah, say less, fam. We'll be back tomorrow here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports.